Hi, my name is Bob Munson, and I'm an environmental historian. So I would ask you to comment on the idea that climate change is a danger. Okay. Okay, is that better? Okay, climate change is a danger. Historically, African farmers have been very adaptive to the environment because the African environment is not that great for agriculture. Rain comes, but it's spread irregularly throughout the year. And I would like to, for example, the Ethiopian famine was more of a political famine. I mean, certainly the environment contributed to that, but it was primarily a political causes to that. So my question is climate change really a danger, or are there other ways that other parts of Africa can pull value from it? Thank you.
So maybe we'll ask Steve in the first instance to take that on, and then anyone else who'd like to add a comment.
Thanks. Yes, it's dangerous. African farmers have adapted to a difficult situation for centuries, and they haven't done very well. There have been high rates of morbidity, people die, agricultural productivity has not been very high. In the last couple of decades, that's begun to improve. But when we're looking at the steep rises, the rises in temperature that are being forecast, and the reductions in water availability, what has already been a fragile situation to which there has been some adaptation, but not nearly enough, those challenges are going to be much greater. It is correct that Ethiopia's famine and many others are partly political, and that's why decisions around choices matter so much. And the fact that these are dangerous trends does not mean that they are impossible to overcome. So it's going to take the right kinds of political decisions around investing in the new kinds of technologies, in seeds and in water availability, in investing in roads so that areas that are hit by famine or other kinds of difficulties can be connected to other areas that are surplus, and those kinds of integrations of markets. So can this be overcome? I think so. I don't think it's too late. But that doesn't change the fact that I think it's quite dangerous if there isn't a lot of action to make sure that situations that are fragile don't become even more fragile.
So the great Indian economist Amartya Sen basically said that there have never been large famines in democratic countries. And in other words, all famines are political. I criticize the overdependence on the nation state as a lens for understanding Africa, and I'm going to take another couple of steps backwards and say that this is even more true for the continental lens. And so, you know, you can really begin to look stupid when you speak of Africa as if Africa were a thing that you could make sense of. Having already given that proviso, I'm going to put myself in the risky position of looking stupid because of the nature of your question makes it unavoidable for me to speak about Africa. There's a figure circulating that says that Africa has something like 60% of the world's unused or unproductive farmland. The problem is that this unproductive or unused farmland is not evenly distributed around Africa. So we spoke about, you have countries like Mozambique, which were tremendously fertile, and for the time being, not densely populated, and which have large amounts of potentially very productive farmland. But you also have lots of other countries. I spoke about the Sahel, which as an entire region fits this case, where land is under intense pressure, where water is under intense pressure, and where population and climate change are going to increase those factors. This is true not just for what we classically think of as the Sahel, but for northern Nigeria, northern Ivory Coast, all of the northern parts of the coastal band of West African countries. And we don't typically think of the Sahel as extending into East Africa, but this extends clear across that band of Africa at that latitude. And so there are large swaths of Africa where the climate is really going to increase the hit that agriculture, that population growth places on societies, because productivity of the land will decrease, the ability to farm will decrease while population is increasing. So it's basically the issue we face is a distribution problem. There's plenty of land in Africa that could be put under the plow, but that's not necessarily within a given country.
Anybody, Amadou or John?
Yeah, maybe if I just can add to it. If you look at the debate at the Paris meeting, the COP21 meeting, the Africans came with a common African position, and insisting a lot on the issue of climate adaptation. So basically getting funding from the international community to really manage and reduce their vulnerability to the current existing climate change. But most of the focus of richer countries was on climate mitigation, which has to do with, reducing the carbon footprint of your industrialization and so on. So they've been pushing, but it's difficult.